Okay, I'm just going to do a real quick lesson about God's job description for a king found in Deuteronomy 17, verse 14 to verse 20. God didn't forbid the people from having a king once they came into the promised land, but it was supposed to be done in this specific way, and it contrasts our typical human idea or the way a king normally lives, or monarch or whatever, in absolute power across the world. So his job description is a little bit different, and it teaches us about the heart of God, and it teaches us about what kind of man he wants to use. So in the first paragraph, God tells how the king is going to be picked. It's not a democracy, it's not a bloody takeover, but the Lord would select a man, and the people were supposed to choose who God chose. And later we see with a prophet is how God chose. He also had to be an Israelite. He couldn't be from another land. And then as you go on in that first paragraph, God tells 3 things that the king is not supposed to do. Now, a typical king doesn't like the word no, doesn't like a command not to do something because they themselves are the law. But here we see this God's kind of king has the King of Kings as his ultimate authority, and he submits himself to him. So 3 things he's not supposed to amass. He's not supposed to amass warfare, like war power for warfare, women, or wealth. Okay? God, if you think of those 3 things, the Lord is supposed to be his ultimate trust for his security and his victory. And then in relationships with women, the Lord is supposed to be this king's ultimate love. And then the not amassing wealth, the Lord is supposed to be this king's ultimate treasure. Okay, and this is in contrast to this kind of king amassing more and more of these things for himself, just for himself, where his whole life orbits around what he wants. Okay, when it talks about the warfare, it also says that they're not supposed to return to Egypt at any time to get horses, which they were slaves there, so God doesn't want them to go back to becoming slaves via purchasing things from there. Okay, how mean is God, right? That he, tells them not to go back where they were enslaved. Okay, in the last paragraph, he tells the king positive commands, things he's supposed to do. And that is, again, the things that God tells this king to do would be foreign to a normal kind of king. Okay, so the first thing he tells him to do is that he's supposed to write his own copy of the Bible to that point, which would be 5 books. It would take a long time, and the priests were supposed to check it to make sure that it was correct. Once he wrote it out, he was supposed to keep it with him at all times, coat pocket, whatever, but it was supposed to be with him, and he was supposed to read it every day for the rest of his life. I know my students don't like to write lines, they don't like to write essays, things that hurt their hand. The top power of the nation could have, paid somebody to do this for him, so it would be a humbling thing for him to submit to. But what God is asking him to do is actually his lifeline. Okay, and God tells him that when he does this, it will actually produce certain qualities inside of him and then around him in his sphere of influence. Okay, so he tells him that if he writes out the Bible, keeps it with him, and reads it every day, it'll cause him to fear the Lord instead of presumably his enemies or his people's opinions or whatnot. He would fear the Lord above all, and that he would keep the commandments. Like it would prevent him from turning aside from God's commandments in the smallest way. When we talk about war power, women, and wealth, in my class we always talk about the power of those things, that the gravitational pull of those things are too strong for human beings to resist by themselves. They naturally put you into a selfish point of reference in your life. But God's word being read every day would be the answer to that for this man. So this would keep his life orbiting around the Lord, and keep him from falling to those temptations that would be knocking at his door every day with the warfare, war, power, women, and wealth. Okay, let's see. The other things that this daily reading would do was it would keep him humble, thinking that he was just one of his brothers that he is leading. He really is nothing special except that God picked him. He is one of the family of the nation of Israel. And it would keep him humble, leading from the middle, not above, looking down. Now, this also does a very unique thing for this man. Every time he opens his Bible, it doesn't just affect his character. It also is blessing his future in securing it, and as he reigns. But then it also blesses his children and his children's children every time he opens the book. That would be by faith. You couldn't tell that every time you opened them and read, but it was something done to the Lord, and the Lord is over generations. He's the Ancient of Days, and he can bless beyond this king's lifespan. So these principles aren't just true, for a king of Israel. The principles are true today in God's covenant family. If you want to be used for leadership, if you want to be protected from these powerful forces that will be pulling at you as you experience success or pressure from leading others, those same principles need to be true. You should not have you at the center. You should have God's word at the center, where it'll keep you orbiting around your fear of the Lord and your heart for him, where he is your treasure, he is your main love, and he is your security. Not any other thing that would compete there. So we also, when we do this lesson, we then project this model into the kings that we will study. We compare all these kings to God's job description and see how they measure up, if they pass or if they fail, or if, where they are on the contingent, if they're worldly king or if they try and follow the Lord. And we're going to find, just as a spoiler alert, that as you look around in this world and in the time of the kings of Israel, few people follow God's job description, and you see a lot of destruction. But God has given us a prescription for success here that you and I have the choice to follow today.